Hello, everybody. I'm Howie Hawkins. I was the Green Party and the Socialist Party candidate for president in 2020. And this Green Socialist Notes podcast is about continuing to educate and organize around the eco-socialist program that Angela Walker, my running mate, and I ran on. So we have a special guest today, a candidate, Michael Oretade. I hope I pronounced his last name right, running for state senate in Hartford, Connecticut. And I'm not going to have too many opening remarks. I just want to note that 85% of us in the U.S. right now are under a heat advisory. The whole northern hemisphere is in a heat wave. Europe, Siberia, North America, and China. So we're really feeling the effects of climate now. And some of these heat waves go down to countries like India. And they're dangerous to, people's health. Heat exhaustion is no joke, and that can lead to heat stroke and death. So, and we don't have the infrastructure to protect people, particularly poor people, from these heat waves. So, Biden last week got out there and everybody thought he was going to finally declare a climate emergency, which we and the climate movement have been calling for years, which will give the president a lot of extra powers to begin doing things, like maybe reversing what he's done. He has permitted more drilling for oil and gas than Donald Trump did on public lands, offshore. The Democrats are supposed to save us from Donald Trump, but who's going to save us from the Democrats? So, Biden made a few, policy initiatives, but it wasn't a climate emergency. He didn't take the powers that he has to address this climate emergency that we're in. And with the war in Ukraine, having everybody more worried about energy supplies and costs than carbon emissions, we're really in trouble. And that's why we need a Green Party to be out here pointing the way to a Green New Deal that'll get us to 100% clean energy in a decade, zero emissions, and deal with both the economic justice as well as the environmental justice issues around the climate crisis and the broader environmental crisis. And of course, the Republicans are out there trying to blame the Democrats for the inflation in energy prices and some of the brownouts and whatnot that are happening because of air conditioning being highly used in these heat waves. And they want to blame the Green New Deal as if the Democrats instituted it. Of course, they didn't. They rejected it. That's our program. So the Republicans are kind of off realities. They're off the planet and they're not grounded in reality. And the Democrats won't face reality. And so I guess I'm just pointing it out. So try to stay cool in this heat wave and stay active. So let's bring on Michael Oretade.
Hi, Mike. How's it going, Howie?
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Mike is he's a Green candidate for Connecticut State Senate from Hartford, Connecticut. It's actually District 1. And he's a first generation of Jamaican and Nigerian descent. He's a substitute teacher. Until recently, when he got ready to run, he was the president of BLM, stands for Black Lives Matter 860, which was the group that really took control or initiative or leadership of the post-George Floyd murder demonstrations and efforts to try to get more accountability and, end police brutality and reform the criminal justice system. And he's well known in Hartford, which is a good foundation on which to run for office. He's taken on an entrenched machine Democrat who's been in office since 1996. And let's put that Hartford current profile in the chat. So it's a nice article. And as it notes, he's hasn't been a politician, but he's well known in the community. And it's a good foundation. So, Mike, why don't you tell us more about yourself and your campaign and how it's going there in Connecticut?
Yeah, sure, Howie. Like Howie was saying, I got my start after the murder of George Floyd. A lot of the issues that are plaguing my community, a lot of people from my community are kind of used to it. So we were feeling as though there was no hope and there's not a lot that we can do, and a lot of individuals are still feeling that way. But when George Floyd was murdered, I kind of had a awakening call, and I was called to the streets, to get active and say something and speak up. And so I did. And at that point, all of the intersectional issues just began to highlight themselves. And so my advocacy work deepened, and I protested, I lobbied, and I advocated for bills passage that would change the conditions in my neighborhoods. And what we were given were a few nice bills, but when they made it through the House and the Senate, they ended up being significantly weakened. And for me, that was another wake-up call that I need to do something. And so that's why I'm running for office, because there are a lot of issues that are plaguing my community, and that extends to everyone. And if we were to solve those issues for my community, it would resolve the issues for everyone. So that's why I'm running for office. My campaign is going pretty well, I would say. We're already on the ballot due to the last candidate that ran. So we're already on the ballot, and we've raised $7,500 so far towards the Citizens Election Program grant in under 2 months. And the goal is to raise 17,000. So we need to raise about 9,500 or less in order to qualify for the Citizens Election Program grant, which is a grant given to us by the state to help finance our campaign. And that keeps big business out of politics in Connecticut.
So why don't you explain a little bit about that program? You get a public grant. It's not a matching funds system where you get X number of dollars matched or, doubled, or in New York it's 6 times. It's actually a public grant. So once you qualify, you're going to get the same grant as the Democrat's going to get. But also, as I understand it, in Connecticut, it's harder for the third parties to get it. They put higher barriers, which has been ratified in the courts, because I know when the program first came in, the Greens objected to the double standard. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that so people know.
Yes, it is. It is a very. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Howie.
Well, I was just going to emphasize the Connecticut program, aside from the discrimination, it's only in Maine, Connecticut, and Arizona where it's public funding, equal grants for everybody who qualifies. The matching fund system that the Democrats are pushing nationally and have passed in some states actually increases the disparity between candidates. If it's a 6-to-1 match and you raise 50,000 that's matched, you get 350,000. 50,000 plus $6 for every one of those 50,000. If you raise 100,000, you get 700,000. So the difference between originally was 50,000, and now it's 350,000. So it's not an equitable system. So I'm just saying, we should be advocating full public campaign financing, not matching funds, which is partial. So anyway, that's my shtick, and that's my thing. I've had that as a big issue for a long time. But going back, could you just explain a little bit more about what you got to deal with in Connecticut?
So initially, we had and 17,000 in order to qualify for $100 grant. But we have discovered that we actually need to get 6,000 signatures, and we still need to raise that 17,300 to get the grant. But we would basically receive close to $100,000 if we were to get it in on time, which would be the first deadline is in August. But unfortunately, I don't believe that we will be able to meet that deadline unless individuals are willing to contribute and help us get to that 17,000 by August 10th. We won't be able to get the first deadline. Won't be able to meet the first deadline. So we are anticipating having to achieve these goals by the end of September, so that we can at least receive $80,000 grant to fund the rest of the campaign. It's rather unfortunate though, because we wanted to do a lot of events in the community. a lot of voting registration events. What I did a lot of as the president of Black Lives Matter as well was do food drives and haircut drives and back to school drives, which was something that I anticipated doing with the grant money as well, to help people get registered to vote and help their kids get prepared for school. And it's just something that I won't be able to do unless we get the funding and amount of signatures by the end of August. So I'm hoping that we can still manage to pull off some of these events if we can get the support we need. We're at 1,000 signatures, and my goal is to be out in the community myself and have several volunteers hitting doors for the next few weeks. And it may be possible that we'll be able to reach our threshold in order to get the grant by the end of August. But worst case scenario, we'll have to settle for the grant amount in September. But I'm definitely looking for support from the broader Green Party. This is the first time that that we have been able to get as much support in the state of Connecticut as we are right now. And I believe we're in a position to unseat the person who is currently in the Senate seat right now, the long-term incumbent, because there are a lot of individuals in the community and in the district that are dissatisfied with his inaction in the community, and they're looking for change. They just don't even know that there is another candidate that is going to do a lot more for the community. And that's why we need the funding, so that we can make sure we get the word out and touch as many people as we can to ensure that they know that there's a better candidate who's going to fight for the people on the ballot.
So say again, how many signatures have you got? How many do you need, and by what date?
So we need 6,000 signatures, and that would be ideally by August 10th. So far, we are at 1,000 signatures, and we would have been at 2,000 had it not been for this heat wave that has occurred this week. But we were unable to go out this week because it was so hot. So we had to take a week off. We did hit the phones a bit, but there's 45,000 people in the district, so it's a lot of people to call. So we're definitely welcoming all volunteers, regardless of where you are. You can volunteer by visiting my website, and my volunteer coordinator could get in touch with you. And we're just the goal is to reach that 6,000 signatures before the end of August, and reach the 17,000 that we need by the end of August as well. So we are at 1,000 signatures so far, and we are at 7,500 in raised funds so far. So we need approximately another 10 grand. We need 300 donations specifically from the district, which is something I plan to do while I'm out, hitting doors, asking, for $5 contributions from within the district. And, and once we reach that threshold, I think as long as I can get the advertising and make sure people are aware that there's a candidate in this district, I guarantee that once they see my platform and what I'm about, that I can pull off a historic win in the state of Connecticut. Absolutely.
I'm sure we can help you raise the money. I think the signature is probably going to be the tougher thing. Let's hope for weather that's not dangerous as this heat wave is. And, people should look in the chat, and you go to Mike's website. The donate button is big. You can see it. It's easy to do. There it is on the screen. And if you can get over there and do some signature gathering, that's really where the rubber meets the road. And that's where Green's got to get off the screens and onto the streets and talk to the people. Speaking of which, I looked at your district. It's a majority minority, Latino and Black. And the incumbent is an old white guy, which isn't bad if he wasn't so disrespectful, as I think that article in the Hartford Current recounts an incident where he told a Black woman she was wearing a button, something like, support Black women or respect Black women. And he said, I need a button for white men. And, It was public. And it's like, is this guy even live in this community? He should know better than to say, nonsense like that. So Um, how's that playing out? It sounds like if people get to know you're running, it's going to get you a lot of votes.
Yeah, I mean, we have discussed what he said to RV Walker to a few people. Some people already know about it, and that was honestly one of the reasons why I decided to run specifically in this district as well, because you represent a large portion of the city that is Black and brown, and you are so disconnected from the issues that you could say something as ignorant as that to someone in your community, completely disregarding their livelihood, their lives, their experiences. And for me, that was just like, as an activist, it was just extremely disrespectful, and it's something that I couldn't stand for. So it was one of the callings that I needed to run in this race. I guess some apologies were issued and things like that, but for me, apologies aren't necessarily good enough. I mean, you represent Black and brown people in this district, and if you are going to disregard, their issues, then you probably shouldn't be holding a seat to represent them.
Yeah, if he didn't know better, that means he's not really in the community and knows what's going on. Going back to the proposals that come out of the post-George Floyd demonstrations, you talked about legislation going forward and getting watered down. And one of my observations is, in the absence of people moving from Black Lives Matter into running their own people for office, like you're running, at the end of 2020, after the summer of demonstrations, the Democratic Party seemed to co-opt the movement into mobilizing people to vote for Democrats. Let's elect Biden and Harris, and we'll get George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, or whatever it's called. And of course, we didn't. And I saw the same thing in Syracuse, where I live, and other cities, where a lot of the energy went into electing Democrats, who then, after the election, did not deliver and are now part of the backlash. Biden wants, $37 billion more to hire police around the country. We had a candidate, or an office holder, Cam Gordon in Minneapolis, who really led the effort to try to totally transform the Minneapolis Police Department. He didn't get reelected. It wasn't only because of that, but so there's a backlash going on. And my observation is, if we don't take our demands in the streets and bring them into elections ourselves, we're not going to get what we need.
And that's why we need more activists in office and not politicians. And that's why I don't necessarily regard myself as a politician. I'm an activist. I'm a fighter for the people. We should not have anyone in office that's not going to fight for your interests. We shouldn't have anyone in office that's not going to fight for you and what's best for you. And that's just my belief. I can't stand that we have a system where individuals can say that they're going to do, this, that, and the third, and when they get into office, they backtrack on everything that they say. I can confidently say that will never be me. I can confidently say that because everything that I am fighting for is everything that the people need, and I'm one of the people. So I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to fight losing battle. I'm going to fight for what everybody needs, and I'll bring all the people with me. That's a big part of what I plan to do as well. I am going to bring people who live in the community to speak about issues that I'm advocating for. Mothers, I'm fighting for universal early childhood education in the state of Connecticut. A bill was proposed during the last session, but it got no traction. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of kids are suffering due to COVID-19. Their education is suffering. A lot of people are unable to go back to work. And with this current economic crisis right now, we can't have people who are unable to go back to work. They're suffering. There's so many people being evicted every day in the state of Connecticut because they're unable to work. They have to take care of their kids. And, for me, that's a problem. If we can universalize our early childhood education system, a lot of people will be able to save money because they won't have to pay exorbitant prices for childcare and go back to work if they need to. And, this should be at the top of the list for a lot of people. But, they claim that they care about the kids. But when it comes to actually taking care of the kids, we don't take care of the kids. And as an educator, that's offensive to me. These are the individuals that we're going to be handing the world off to when we're dead and gone. So we need to be building them up. They're the next piece of the foundation that we have now, and our foundation is already shoddy. So we need to be supporting that foundation and building it up. So that's one of the main things that I'm fighting for. Is one of the top 3 issues that I'm fighting for, and I plan to make sure that I bring mothers and parents in to have those discussions. Like, how much are you paying for childcare? Some people are paying $750 a week, and those are people who don't have assistance. And then there are individuals who are on a waiting list to get assistance. There's not enough support for the mothers out here.
So let me, before we go to questions from people in the chat, I was just going to ask you to, highlight a couple of things on your platform. You just did about the child care and early childhood education, Connecticut as a whole, history, particularly Hartford, around segregation. So, there's the school issues. One of the interesting things, and maybe you want to comment on this, is in your environmental platform, you talk about plasma gasification, a way to deal with solid waste, which is something, I haven't seen many people promote. I remember discussion of this like a decade ago, but maybe you want to talk about that for a minute, as well as anything else you want to emphasize from your platform before we go to question and answers.
So there are a lot of environmentalists that are against technologies like this. They think of it as incineration 2.0, but a lot of the newer advancements in this technology are carbon neutral. You can look it up. Anyone in the chat can look up Sierra Energy. I have no ties whatsoever to corporations. I have no interest in corporations. I have no interest in money or any type of thing if it's not going to be able to benefit my community. So I'm going to just say plasma arc technology is just one of the ways that I feel as though we could deal with a lot of the issues in my neighborhoods. It could possibly deal with our waste infrastructure, create a more circular economy. If it's combined with a composting, municipal infrastructure, then it can deal with our food waste as well. But the main goal through the usage of this technology is that it could deal with something that is a actual issue in the state of Connecticut. We don't have a stable transportation budget because we do not have tolls in Connecticut. So we have to go into the general fund in order to fund our transportation budget. And what that does is that impacts the cost on materials. And through plasma arc technology, we will be melting down our garbage into an aggregate that can be used, in an inert aggregate at that. And that could be used for road construction and other construction projects. And what that'll end up doing is cutting costs in the state of Connecticut to deal with our roads. And if you ever take a drive through the city of Hartford, you will know for a fact how difficult and how arduous it is to travel through the city because the road conditions are so terrible. I remember someone posted a video on Facebook, and one of the potholes was about 3 feet deep. Like a kid could get lost in there. It was wide. It was like 2 feet wide and 3 feet deep. Now, what if somebody was walking across the street, a kid or anything, and they fell into that? You know what I mean? Or their leg got caught in something like that. That would be extremely dangerous. So it's an environmental hazard at that point where we need to be dealing with this stuff. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I want to create a circular economy with our garbage. Plasma arc technologies, it would need to implement ways to deal with our plastic. And I've been talking to DEEP, which is our environmental leaders in the state of Connecticut. They are in charge of making sure that whatever policy is implemented is going to be safe for the environment and things of that nature. So I talked to some leadership over at DEEP, and they want to also create a circular economy. But their proposals and recommendations aren't getting the traction that they need. And that's because we have a bunch of corporate interests in the state of Connecticut around fracking and hauling. So individuals are paying lobbyists to ensure that they can still haul our garbage out of state, because that is what's happening right now. They're hauling our garbage to places like Philadelphia, and that's only contributing to our carbon footprint and our tax going to other states. So there's a lot of issues with our current municipal and state ran waste infrastructure. The goal for me is to just make sure that we can take care of the garbage and lessen the asthma rates and things like that, because a lot of the garbage is just piling up, and we're not really doing anything about it. And even if we ship it out, we're still contributing to the carbon emissions, and our carbon footprint is not going to reach net zero because we're shipping our garbage out of state. We need to deal with it here.
So let's see if we can go to some questions that have been posted in the chat for Mike, and give that a second. I know there've been some. Here we go. Eric Gray, what is Michael's plan for building community-based political power that will last beyond just a single election cycle?
So, just in case anyone isn't aware of some of my origins, my name is Michael Oretade. I'm the former president of Black Lives Matter A60. We do a lot of work in the community. In terms of building political power, we've done voter registration drives. I'm no longer the sitting president because of conflict of interest. I don't want anything to impact my campaign if activists want to do what they want to do. So a big part of what I'm, still in conversations with a bunch of activist groups, and something that I may implement into my campaign is we have individuals who are just, when you talk to people, they say, I'm not into politics. So we're going to have an I'm not into politics campaign. And basically, it'll just be a response every time someone says I'm not into politics. We talk about how your taxes are affected, how your education is affected, how your gas prices are affected by politics. So we're going to have a campaign that basically informs people how they can make a difference to the best of their ability. And that'll be a campaign that we're going to be working on, as well as just engaging with the community. We continue to engage with the community and make sure information is out there. Outside of that, I'm a board member of an organization called Connecticut Equity Now. And the goal of that organization is to end the silos in the state of Connecticut and inform individuals about the political infrastructures that exist and the bills that are brought up, especially the very important ones. And what happens is we basically come together. It's about 150 activists and organizations that are part of the Connecticut Equity Now network. And the goal with that organization is just to make sure that everyone is informed to the best of our ability when there's a specific issue that's brought up within the legislature. And that's how we can build power and political power, because we'll be able to easily inform individuals what's going on in the legislature. A lot of people are feeling powerless, though. Even if we give them all the information, they're going to still feel, what can I do? What can I do to change this? And we're just going to have to continue to educate them that you have power through your vote. And a lot of people see that how the presidential elections work, and they think that, this is leaves me powerless and I can't do anything. But people don't understand that your local elections are where you have the most power. If you choose individuals who are going to fight for you, then they're going to be able to fight for you. And those people can get the job done. You may feel powerless in your federal elections, but I can tell you right now, your local elections, those individuals will be able to advocate for you on a local level and fix the issues that are affecting you right now.
What's the status of the Green Party organization in Hartford in the relationship between your campaign and the local chapter, if there is one?
Yeah, there's a local chapter. What's the relationship? We have a strong relationship. Me and Peter Gosselin, he's one of the heads of the Green Party in my city. And one of the chairmen is actually my campaign manager, Dustin Fiore, Esquire. He's my campaign manager. He's been doing a pretty good job keeping things organized. He got me to sit here with you, the man, the myth, the legend. So, it's a pleasure to be here. So, they're doing well. I think that once I managed to pull off the most incredible win for this election, we'll gain a lot of traction and power in the state of Connecticut, because we have a lot of Democrats that will say that we're going to do all this environmental stuff, but they never move on it. So I feel like once we get the and it's a lot of activists that are actually joining the Green Party, believe it or not. A lot of Black Lives Matter activists are joining the Green Party as we speak, because we're noticing that we don't have any power in this duopoly between the two parties that are in power right now. So we are looking at the Green Party as a opportunity to actually build a party that has already been talking about civil rights issues, already been talking about environmental protections, already talking about fighting for the people. And we're going to build that power up. And, you know, what we need from the community, from the broader community, from the individuals from all over the country is your support. We need you to donate to our campaigns. And I know that's a lot of the talking points for the Democrats and the Republicans, but we are not like them. There's no power structure that's fueling us on a local level right now. We need to make sure that we support candidates who are actual activists. And if you donate to my campaign, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna make sure that I am seen. And I'm gonna make sure that I got the support that I can get from the community. Make sure that everybody knows about me. And if we pull out, it'll be a legendary win. It'll make history. If you donate to my campaign and support my win, it will make history, and it'll position the Green Party in the state of Connecticut to be that minor party opposed to the Republicans. And then what we'll have is we'll have a liberal primary party, and then we'll have a progressive minor party. And that's what we need to be shifting. We need to be shifting it over from the Republicans being the minor party to the Greens being the minor party. And what that's going to be, it's going to be the liberal agenda versus the progressive agenda, which is us really pushing for actual change opposed to moderate change.
Well, that's good to hear. I think part of building political power is building the Green Party at the grassroots level. The thing about the two major parties is there's nothing for the average person to do in them except show up and vote in November. There's no place where people meet, talk about the issues, come up with solutions, and go out and organize to achieve them. That's why we need the Green Party at the grassroots. Otherwise, the masses are atomized, and all they're getting is messages which are funded by big business interests, advertising,
exactly,
and political campaign advertising. And, you know, the way to break through that and get people thinking is to have a, local Green Party chapter that people feel, well, I can go there and find out what's going on. I can learn stuff and do stuff. Democrats and Republicans don't offer that. So that's a vacuum in terms of political power and political education. So, and I think, yes, you can win. I just looked at the demographics of the district, the record of the incumbent, and I'm thinking this guy is a sitting duck. He probably don't even know. He may be a dead man walking and not know it. Maybe that wasn't the right metaphor, but
it's okay.
I think it's a winnable race, and it would be important.
We can win.
Yeah, and it's important because we've only elected a couple of state legislators in 35 plus years. This would be big. Matthew Ho's race, everybody's getting a lot of attention. That's a long shot win. I believe you can win. So I hope people will, send Mike some money.
So.
Think about coming to Connecticut in August or, end of this month to help with the petitioning. Because, 6,000 signatures for a Senate race is no joke. And that's another problem with our political system. I just came from Richard Winger was giving the keynote address to the annual national meeting of the Green Party. And he pointed out, as I pointed out, you want to run for the House of Representatives in the United States. In most states, it's thousands or tens of thousands of signatures. You want to do it in the United Kingdom, it's 10 signatures. You want to do it across the border in Canada, it's 100 signatures. And the Green parties or any party doesn't have a problem getting on the ballot in most advanced democracies. In the United States, they have barriers. And, that really undermines our claim to be a real democracy. So,
exactly.
And Mike needs the help. All I'm making the pitches for people. See if you can find a little time in August if you're within driving distance to spend a day or two.
Yeah, if you guys can come to this. I'm sorry, Howie. I'll get a little passionate and I cut you off.
People need to find a little time to get some signatures for you for a day or two in August. And that will help. And I think it will also help the local people to know that they got support. So anyway, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, if you guys take the trip to Connecticut, I'll make sure that my volunteer coordinator, who we've just brought on, make sure that you have the tools that you need in order to succeed out here on the streets or on the phones. You can also even work from your home on the phones. We have 45,000 people that we could be reaching out to right now in the district, and if they just hear about me, it's a good chance that they might look into me and come out and vote. Our winning number, I believe, is around 30,000. So if we get around 30,000 votes in the district, we'll be able to unseat this person who is in power right now, who I believe I believe is not going to be working in the best interest of the people, as far as where my platform is and as far as where his platform is. I think that we need someone who's going to fight for the people over the next decade. And that's me. I'm gonna give this my all. I'm a activist first, and I'm not a politician. So I'm fighting for you. And one day I do hope to run for president. I want to run for president, and I believe that if I win this election, it's a straight shot for me to the White House, because of the amount of work that I'm going to put in this seat. People are going to see it. It's going to make headlines. So I'm ready. I'm ready to embark on that journey 10 years from now, and on that journey for the next 10 years, so that you guys can vote for me to be your president, where I will make significant change. Because during that time, I plan on assisting Howie and the rest of the Green Party with growing throughout the nation, so we can get into offices all over the nation and make change everywhere. We can no longer wait for the Democrats to stop taking corporate dollars from individuals and corporations that are not working in your best interest, being lobbied, being paid off. We cannot wait anymore. We need to be doing this on our own as the people.
Yeah, we need a whole bench of candidates like Mike. So you're not running somebody like me who just retired from unloading trucks as a UPS worker, teamster, but wasn't coming out of the kind of political experience, as as a legislator and so forth, that is the kind of resume to have a serious campaign for president the Greens will need. We got the program, and we know the Democrats and Republicans are no solution. But part of building our party is we got to build it from the bottom up. So I think we got to support Michael's campaign and others like it. So Garrett, Speith. Hi, Michael and Howie. In 2 years, when I'm eligible, I plan to run for state representative in Southern Illinois. What advice do you have for me? Let me just start with that briefly. And this is advice for Michael and anybody running for office, is that as you go through your campaign, you got to be taking names, whether you're getting them tabling or informal encounters or systematic canvassing. You want to be building the list of people that are sympathetic and those that are going to vote for you. And on election day, then you got a list of people to mobilize out for the vote. But one of the things I find in local races, Greens, they think, they got great yard signs, they hand out literature, but they're not taking names. And you've got to build your base of people who are out there. And Michael says 30,000 is his winning number. He may not be able to build a list of 30,000 names. But if he builds a list of 5,000 names, and those people, his campaign's talking to, they're ready to go to the polls, and all those people talk to people. You got to build those lists. So to Garrett, that's part of it. The other thing I'll say, and then I'm going to hand it over to Mike, is you got to do like Mike did. You got to be active in the community so people know you before you even run. So go ahead, Mike.
That's what I was going to tell him, Howie, is that getting active in the community. And you don't want to get active in the community because you want to run for office. You want to get active in the community because there's problems that need to be resolved. So you get active in the community, you advocate for change, you call your legislator, you tell them, hey, look, man, there's an issue here. What are you going to do about it? And see what their position on it is, see if they're going to push a bill on it. I would say just advocate for change, fight in the community, build an organization, even if it's just grassroots. It doesn't need to be a nonprofit or anything. Black Lives Matter 860 is completely separate from the national organization, has no support or any money from the national organization. We did everything on the ground on our own. We raised a few $1,000s to do haircut events in the city and give out food boxes to the disenfranchised. We went around and gathered signatures just because we wanted to see if anyone is willing to help us end the housing crisis, So just get active in your community, talk solutions, talk about the potential of what can be changed, and get some support doing that first instead of just outright running.
Yeah, I would also add, build up your Green Party local or organize one if there isn't one, because you want people that are committed for the long haul working together. When we work collectively, we end up with smarter decisions because, you've probably all experienced that. You draft a op-ed. If you show it around, people will give you some feedback and you'll come out with something better than you started. So that collective work process makes us all smarter, better educated, and it gives us mutual support because you're not out there by yourself. So that would be another piece of advice, Garrett. Just, get your Green Party local organized and active, not just on the elections, but on the issues between elections. Green Meadows. Michael, are you going to be trying to keep cops out of schools?
Absolutely. What do we need cops in school for? We saw what happened in Uvalde. Cops don't need to be in schools. They're not going to thing. They, you know what? I got to remember, I'm an activist. Listen, we don't need them in the schools. We don't need teachers with guns either. We what we need is significant change of all of these systems, all of our criminal justice systems. What we need is more focus on mental health, and we need some form of gun legislation that's going to lean towards where the future is headed. I am a fan of smart gun technology. If we're not going to change the current systems, then we need to be implementing gun control where individuals are tasked with having guns that are linked to their genetic signature and linked to their voice and things like that, and locked away in containers that match that technology. I'm seeing some really good questions in the chat, and I would love to answer every single one of them. But yeah, no, I have no interest in making sure police are in the schools. We don't need them. What we need to do is make sure that they are that the children are safe and getting the mental health supports, that every gun owner is getting mental health supports so that they are not a risk to public safety. Because we're seeing a lot of is individuals who commit mass killings talking about their issues, writing in diaries about the issues that are plaguing them, talking about toothaches that they can't get help for because our medical care system is abysmal. We need to be acknowledging these things that we're hearing about instead of supporting corporate interests, because that is how our guns permeate throughout the country and throughout the world, is just corporate interests, and for the military and things like that. So we need to, if we're going to keep guns, we need to make them smart. We need to make our legislation smart. And that's just where I am in regards to cops in schools.
Yeah, I think the problem with cops in schools is they come in and the way they handle disciplinary issues is through the criminal justice system. So kids get pushed into it's a accelerator of the school to prison pipeline. When what you need to deal with these problems with kids have in the schools and the conflicts and fights they have is counselors and social workers and psychologists and teachers that are trained to deal with these problems. Now, if there is violence going on that, you don't want, your second grade, young woman who's a school teacher to try to break up because they can get hurt that way, then you want cops that know what the hell they're doing, which the Uvalde cops obviously didn't. But they don't need to be sitting there on campus all day. If something develops, They can come in and hopefully deal with that. You know, cops are not warriors. They're supposed to be peacekeepers, peace officers. They should know how to de-escalate conflict situations. And, you know, if you got an active shooter, then you got to deal with that. But you need people trained to deal with that. That's the exceptional situation where I see you want a cop, but the problem is 95% of what cops do is not dealing with that. They're out here giving tickets, you know, harassing people that are homeless, harassing guys just standing on the corner because they don't have no recreation to go to or no jobs to go to. You know, that's, you know, what the cops are enforcing is class distinctions, which are often racially aligned. So they're keeping the poor people out of the upscale communities. That's what they're really organized to do. So we got to, you know, redo that whole system. And just putting a cop in there looking to arrest kids in schools makes the problem worse. So anyway.
I mean, you policing in America, police officers were the original slave catchers. That was their designation. That is what they were created for in America. So we got to really think about what they are and what they're needed for. I don't believe that there should be any armed individuals inside the school. I don't believe that that is something that is necessary in order to protect our students. And we have one big issue that we have with our police officers in this country is that they have a superiority complex. It is a white supremacist system. So people who are a part of it believe that they are above you, they are above the law, that they can do what they please. And that is a problem. You're a law enforcer. You are not a god of the community. You are an individual that should not talk down to the community members. You should be talking to the community. You should be engaging with the community, not, you know, looking down on people and speaking to people as if they are less than. And that's the unfortunate byproduct of our systems is that these individuals come into our neighborhoods because most of them are not from our neighborhoods. And they look down on everyone in it. They don't look at us. They look at us as if we're cattle, you know, and we are not. We are people. We have we bleed the same. Excuse me. Ooh, allergies.
Okay, there's the next question. Amy L. Sachs asked Michael, "What do you hope to do first thing when you assume office?" In regards.
Well, my goals are pretty extensive. But the first thing that I want to establish in the state of Connecticut is universal early childhood education, first and foremost. We need to be building up the children. We need to make sure that they have the supports that they need. And if we want a healthy economy, then we need to be supporting the mothers as well. And that's just the first thing that I plan to advocate for. I believe it is going to be the first win of my tenure within the Senate. It's something that everyone can agree to. A lot of people who actually don't care about the kids will eventually need to wisen up and agree with it as well, because this is what's necessary. It's our foundation building. These early years are the most important building blocks of a person's entire life. So yes, we will make sure that they are getting the attention and care that they need, and that that program gets the funding that it needs to supplement it, whether that is from the feds, whether that's from our lottery system, or whether that is from our cannabis industry, or all three. We'll make sure that it gets the funding that it needs, and that the children are receiving the care that they need in order to be effective members of society. A lot of people don't know is that if you have a successful early childhood education, it actually lowers crime in the long run, because children have the building blocks that they need to be successful. So if you care about crime, there was a rhetoric that was going around the state of Connecticut was that we need to put children in these juvenile prison systems. And instead of doing that, we need to just support them and give them programs, after school programs, job training programs like what I had when I was growing up, and universal early childhood education. So these are all things that I plan on making sure get done my first 2 years or year in office. I will fight like hell, and I'll make sure that everyone around me is fighting for this as well.
Andy Messick. Yes, what is your plan to improve your name ID in the district going forward?
Well, we got to get this. We have to get the campaign finance, guys. Like, I need to raise another $10,000 by the end of August in order to promote myself. We have plans. We have plans to make sure that my face is on the side of our city buses. We have plans to make sure that the most popular hotspots in the city have visuals of me and my campaign goals and ways to learn more about me. The biggest goal is just to make sure that individuals know who I am and what I'm about. And I need to make sure that advertising is top notch. So that's the goal. Right now, we're getting a lot of traction on social media with just $200 to our social media campaign promotion budget. So I want you to imagine what that could look like if I was able to put $10,000 or $5,000 towards that, because that is what will be afforded once we get the Citizens Election Program grant. Individuals are locked at $290 individual contributions, so you can no longer donate after you go over $290. But if everyone who is participating, if the broader the Greens all over the country are watching this, donate to my campaign and help me win, because I will win if I get the support and the traction that I need and the visibility. So the goal is to make sure that individuals see me, see who I am, join the fight, and learn and vote. We're gonna do some reach out. If we get the support we can, we're gonna reach out to the unregistered voters, the people who feel like they don't have a voice or don't have representation. We got to get out there and support those individuals too, get them registered as green so that they can, be the new secondary party in the state of Connecticut. We'll do that as long as we get the support that we need. But as of right now, we only have raised $7,500 in the last 2 months. Now that might seem like a big deal, but without the support from you guys and the support from the community, we won't be able to get that Citizens Election Program grant. So please, if you can take the time and donate, please do.
Yeah, going back to Hartford, I think you described this briefly, but as I understand it, the Hartford, charter or city charter says no party can have more than, I forget the number, like 10 out of 12 seats on the council. So therefore, that's why there are Republicans on the council. Sometimes there have been phony third parties that were really Democrats who used a different party label. But I think if you get elected, it shows the Green Party can win. And they can use that provision in the city charter to get Greens on the Hartford City Council right away. And of course, once you start winning some of those races, then you can start taking on and get more inroads in other races. That's why I think you mentioned the state of Connecticut. I think Hartford itself, just given that situation with the city charter, is a way we can, as Greens, get inroads in a sizable city, Hartford, Connecticut.
I agree wholeheartedly. We need to be growing this party. I'm gonna make sure, like, if I win this election, it's gonna be one of my top priorities to expand the party, and we need to start expanding on a national level, because we can't depend on the powers that be to actually fight for the planet that we live on, which is, I know that sounds outlandish, but it's real, I feel like I have a solution right now as a person who wants to run for president to deal with our crisis in our oceans with all the plastic piling up. We can manage to develop this technology, the circular economic technology, then what we can end up doing is cleaning our oceans, saving our wildlife, melting that garbage down into an aggregate and treating all of our roads. We could do so much for our community, so much for our planet, making a circular economy, like, we can do this. It's not impossible. But do we care about the people or corporate interests?
So maybe we got time for one more question.
I'm ready.
Yeah, me too. But maybe the manager, but here we go. Violet Conti.
Of course I do. Absolutely. And I mean, here's the thing: what we get is a lot of double speak in regards to reparations. it doesn't even need to be denoted as reparations. Yeah, we can promote the reparations, and I will absolutely use it in my language and my vernacular. But a lot of the reparative action that we need is simply intersectional work. You know, funding for our inner city schools instead of depending on property taxes, because you know that a lot of people don't own property in the city of Hartford. We need to make sure that there's money in that fund to make sure our schools are on par with schools who have a higher tax bracket and property values. So when we talk about reparations, what we need to be discussing is how do we achieve true equity, and we can achieve that if the state and the feds actually acknowledge all of the atrocities that have been committed on Black bodies and Black people. And if we need to call it reparations, I'm absolutely for it. If we need to call it anything else, as long as it's solving the problems and getting money into the hands of the individuals that need it the most, and we're making sure that it does, then let's do it. So absolutely, I support reparations.
Okay, so I have to get to a annual national meeting workshop on strategies for ballot access. So first of all, Mike, thanks for coming on. I want you to know that I'm going to make a donation. And I'm going to look at my calendar and talk with your campaign people, see, what the most productive days for me to come out and do some petitioning would be. I just think everybody who can should do that. And I'm going to, put my body where my mouth is and do some of that. I'm actually going to try to do some in Pennsylvania as well.
Sounds good.
Sometime before the end of the month, because they are coming close to their deadline. So thanks again. Now, have we got the annual national meeting registration thing in the chat? Because if you haven't signed up, you need to do that first. If you want to go to this workshop, which is strategies for ballot access that I'm doing with Richard Winger, that starts in 3 minutes. So, and we're going to talk about, one of the things I'm going to talk about is how you go out there and actually get signatures.
Right.
It's I've been doing it since 1990. We tried to get a Green on the ballot for governor of New Hampshire. That's a whole story in itself. And the other day I did a little estimate. I've got about 40,000 signatures for Greens over the years. And that may be a low estimate. And in New York, we only have 42 days. It's unlike most states where there's either no limit or a much longer time frame between start and submission deadline. So I've learned a thing or two. So if you want to, get that, come to this workshop. If you're already registered for the annual national meeting, you know where to go. And once again, Mike, thanks for coming, and good luck. And we'll do the best we can to help you. And so everybody else, we'll be back here next week for another discussion. Have a good week.
Oh, thank you for having me, y'all.